They laughed when I cried, but they didn't know those tears would one day become the fuel for my empire. My name is Rachel Carter, and for most of my life, I was the girl people overlooked. The one with patched-up sneakers, second-hand clothes, and a voice that never seemed loud enough to matter. I grew up in a small town where appearances meant everything, and if you didn't fit the mold, you became entertainment. No one understood that better than Olivia Price. She was the golden girl, wealthy family, flawless smile, captain of the cheer team, and the kind of charm that made adults adore her instantly. We had known each other since childhood, but if I was the shadow, Olivia was the spotlight. By high school, she had perfected the art of making my pain her punchline. She mocked the way I spoke, laughed at the bruises I tried to hide after working late shifts, and spread whispers about my family's struggles. The cruelest part wasn't just her words, it was the way everyone else followed her lead. A room full of laughter feels like knives when you're the target. Still, I pushed forward. I studied harder than anyone, picking up part-time jobs to cover bills while balancing textbooks that weighed more than I did. Olivia, on the other hand, floated through life, handed opportunities one could only dream of. She didn't need to work, she only needed to smile, and doors opened for her. But the thing about pain is this, it carves you. It forces you to grow sharper edges, thicker skin, a fire no one else can see, until it burns them. After graduation, our paths split, but Olivia's shadow still lingered. She became everything she was expected to be, a polished socialite, networking her way into a glamorous career in public relations. And me? I clawed my way through scholarships, sleepless nights, and jobs that nearly broke me. We crossed paths again years later, in the polished halls of a corporate skyscraper. I had just been hired at a rising tech startup, my chance to finally prove myself. And there she was, Olivia, already there, already adored, her laughter echoing through the glass walls as though the years hadn't changed a thing. She looked at me like I was still that fragile girl with hand-me-down clothes. Her smirk said it all, you don't belong here. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't the one crying in the bathroom stall or begging for people to like me. I had learned how to endure. How to build. How to rise. And though Olivia didn't know it yet, the empire I was about to create would be the very thing that made her weep. The first few weeks at the startup were supposed to feel like a fresh start. I had my own desk, my own projects, and a small team depending on me. But the minute Olivia noticed I had returned to the same building, subtle alarms began ringing, tiny, almost imperceptible, yet impossible to ignore. It started with the little things. My ideas in meetings would be interrupted, rephrased by Olivia before anyone could hear the original version. Executives nodded, impressed, giving her credit with a smile. I forced myself to laugh it off, telling myself it was just office politics. Then came the favoritism. When a client praised Olivia's initiative, I had to bite back the urge to speak. Because while she took credit for my suggestions, any mistake she made, no matter how minor, was shrugged off. But if I slipped even slightly, the blame landed squarely on me. The contrast was jarring and painful. Her behavior didn't stop at work. At team dinners, she'd make jokes about my background, my struggles, or my style, always laughing, always light-hearted in appearance. But the sting was real. People laughed too, and I felt every eye on me, silently judging. Worse still, whispers started to reach my ears. Colleagues who once smiled at me in the hallway now avoided eye contact. I heard snatches of conversation, she's too sensitive, don't you think? Maybe she's not cut out for this environment. Every word, every tone, pointed back to Olivia, even when they pretended it didn't. The stress began to pile up. Nights became sleepless marathons of self-doubt. I questioned myself constantly, was I imagining it? Was I overreacting? Was I really as insignificant as everyone seemed to believe? And then one evening, I saw something I couldn't ignore. I stayed late to finish a project and walked past Olivia's office. The door was slightly ajar. She was scrolling through what looked suspiciously like my files, my drafts, my notes, my charts. She laughed softly to herself and took a quick photo with her phone before closing the folder. My heart pounded. My pulse raced. This wasn't competition. This was something else. Something calculated. I stepped back, hidden in the shadows, my hands trembling. For the first time, I realized that Olivia hadn't just forgotten me or dismissed me, she was watching. Waiting. Preparing. When she finally left the office, she glanced toward me with that infuriating, effortless smile, brushing past as if she owned the place. Her words, casual yet cutting, floated in the air. Don't work too hard, Rachel. Some things just aren't meant for everyone. I froze, blood cold, stomach twisting. I knew then that my instincts had been right all along. She wasn't just a rival, she was a threat. And I had no idea just how far she was willing to go. The client pitch was supposed to be my triumph. Months of work, sleepless nights, and endless revisions had built to this moment. I had rehearsed every line, every slide, every answer to every possible question. I was ready to prove that I belonged, that I had earned my place in this company. Then Olivia took the stage. It wasn't just that she was speaking. It was my work, my concepts, my charts, my campaign strategy, on the screen behind her. Every word I had painstakingly written, every innovative idea I had proposed, had been stolen and rebranded as hers. She delivered it with her usual charm, her voice smooth, her smile flawless. Executives leaned in, clients nodded, the applause echoing like a hammer striking my chest. I froze. Shock rooted me to my chair. My throat burned with disbelief. My fingers clenched into fists so tight I could feel the pain shoot up my arms. How could she, how dared she, take everything I had worked for and present it as her own? When the CEO finally spoke, his words hit like ice. Excellent work, Olivia. Your vision and leadership on this project have been remarkable. We're promoting you to lead strategist. My world crumbled. Lead strategist, the role I had spent years preparing for, the opportunity one had sacrificed everything for, was gone. Stolen, handed to the very person who had mocked my struggles, who had whispered that I didn't belong. And the worst part? Everyone believed her. Olivia's triumphant smile met mine across the room. It wasn't a smile of charm, or even amusement, it was the smile of a predator who had proven the world wrong about her prey. You see? You never belonged. I fled the room the moment the meeting ended, the applause ringing in my ears like a funeral march. I barely made it back to my apartment before collapsing, the weight of humiliation pressing down like a physical force. Tears blurred my vision, anger burned in my chest, and heartbreak hollowed me out. I went over everything in my mind, the photos she had taken of my files, the whispers I had overheard, the subtle ways she had undermined me from day one. Every warning sign, every uneasy feeling, it all pointed here. She hadn't just competed with me. She had orchestrated my professional destruction. And yet, in the midst of my despair, a spark ignited. I realized that I wasn't broken, not truly. Olivia had taken what she could, but she hadn't taken my resolve. As I sank into the couch, shaking and exhausted, I whispered to myself, half in rage, half in determination, this isn't over. Somewhere deep inside, I knew that the girl who had been laughed at, mocked, and erased would not stay down forever. The question that haunted me as I stared at the ceiling was simple and terrifying. How far would I go to make her pay? For 2 days after the pitch, I moved through the world like someone sleepwalking. The apartment felt too small for the weight on my chest. Every mirror showed only the hollowed-out version of myself who'd been laughed at and then erased. Friends texted condolences. Coworkers offered awkward smiles. But the noise felt distant, like applause heard through thick glass. Then a single moment changed everything. I went back to the office that night, under the pretense of collecting a file I'd forgotten. The building was quiet, elevators whispering, lights dimmed to save electricity. I padded down the corridor toward the conference room where the final presentations were saved on the server. I told myself it was closure, really, it was curiosity dressed as cowardice. The door was ajar. Voices murmured inside. I paused, heart pounding, and peered in. Olivia sat with two senior executives, the glow of the laptop painting her face like a spotlight. She was animated, the type of confidence that made people surrender their judgment. On the screen were my slides, my notes open in a window I recognized instantly. She was talking about narrative control and managing perception, and then she said something that stopped me cold. People only remember the story you let them remember, she said, smiling. You shape the record and they'll climb on your coattails. I make people believe. That's the real power. One executive laughed. Brilliant. You always know how to position things. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't remorseful. She wasn't even careful. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't petty rivalry. It was strategy. She had been shaping my record, my reputation, my future, intentionally, systematically, making sure the world read me wrong. Something inside me snapped. The salt of humiliation hardened into resolve. I remembered every late night, every bus ride, every unpaid invoice I'd swallowed to keep going. I remembered the small girl who had learned that nobody hands you a crown, you build it. I walked in. The room went quiet, the executives turned, surprise rippling across their faces. Olivia's smile faltered for a second, a small crack I hadn't seen before. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood, leveled my gaze at her, and spoke evenly. That campaign was my work. The files are dated. I have the drafts. She recovered quickly, charm back in place, but the seed had been planted. That night, I didn't leave empty-handed. I copied every file I'd ever shared with her, pulled metadata from autosaves, and saved emails with timestamps. I left the office with my bag heavier than when I'd walked in, carrying not just evidence but a new version of myself. Over the next week, I changed in small, deliberate ways. I stopped apologizing for occupying space. I learned how to word questions that made people reveal what they knew. I practiced steady breaths before confrontations. I reached out, quietly, to Laura in graphics and Anton in analytics, the two who had given me small, knowing looks during meetings. They didn't offer pity, they offered facts, dates, recollections. Allies, not saviors. One night, standing at my kitchen counter, I opened a fresh document and titled it simply, Plan. The hope that had been fragile after the pitch hardened into something else, discipline. I pressed my palm to the page as if to claim it. This ends, I whispered, not to the room, but to myself. Not because they pity me. Because I won't let them rewrite my story. Revenge isn't drama, it's logistics. After my night in the conference room, the anger that had once threatened to swallow me became method. I treated it like any campaign I'd run, audit the facts, assemble the team, pick the moment. Only this time the goal was different. The objective was simple, prove the truth beyond the charm Olivia used to hide behind. Step 1, build the timeline. I pulled every draft, every autosave, every emailed attachment and laid them out side by side. Timestamps didn't lie. Metadata showed the creation dates, edit histories flagged my handwriting in comments, and file properties revealed versions that predated Olivia's final. What had once been buried in memory became a physical trail, immutable and cold. Step 2, secure witnesses. I stopped looking for allies who wanted headlines and started finding people who wanted fairness. Laura from graphics admitted she'd watched Olivia take credit for design tweaks. Anton in analytics confessed he'd seen numbers altered in final reports. They weren't dramatic, they were precise. Quiet statements, short emails, names and dates. I told them what I needed and kept my requests surgical, no speeches, just facts. They wrote what they knew. Step 3. Set the legal perimeter. I reached out to a compliance lawyer I'd once met at a panel, hypotheticals first, then specifics. He confirmed what I feared. The evidence hinted at fraud and falsified approvals, not just petty office theft. I filed a calm, formal complaint with HR, not a scream, but a record. Paper trails matter more than temper. Step 4. Craft the exposure. Public humiliation would be useless if it could be gaslit away. So I created a dossier of side-by-side slides, clean and undeniable, copies of emails with headers, recorded boastful conversations Laura had captured, and sworn statements typed and signed. I encrypted it, duplicated it to 3 secure drives, and labeled one copy for release, if necessary. Then I found 2 entry points, a respected industry reporter known for digging into corporate scandals, and the firm's annual showcase, the perfect stage where executives, clients, and cameras gathered. Step 5. The Theater of Truth. Olivia continued to glide through the office life as if nothing had changed, lunches with sponsors, late-night demo rehearsals, selfies with executives. The more she laughed, the more confident she seemed. That confidence was my ally. People who feel untouchable rarely watch their backs. I arranged for Julia in AV to be ready with a clean switch at the showcase's projection system and quietly confirmed that the compliance officer I'd briefed would be in attendance. The reporter agreed to be on site and to publish immediately should the dossier be released. Timing had to be surgical, public, undeniable, and irreversible. I practiced calmness the way I'd practiced pitches, steady voice, clear evidence, no theatrics. Every contingency had a contingency. Every copy of the dossier was mirrored off-site. My allies had instructions and exit strategies. The night before the showcase, I packed the envelope that held my life's work and the truth that would unmake her. I slipped the drives into my bag, checked the list one last time, and felt the old fear pulse under my ribs. Outside, the city lights flashed across the glass facade of the hotel where she would shine tomorrow. Inside, Olivia was celebrating her supposed victory, unaware that someone had already rewritten the narrative. I sat in my car, breath slow, fingers wrapped around the folder. My thumb hovered over the small laminated card with the reporter's number. I dialed. The line rang once, twice, then a voice answered, crisp and professional. "I have everything," I said. There was a pause long enough to hear my heartbeat. On the other end, "Are you absolutely certain you want to go live with this tomorrow?" I swallowed. Outside, the marquee glowed, Annual Innovation Gala, tomorrow. "I'm certain," I whispered. And then I heard a laugh, from inside the hotel, warm and effortless, the kind that had once made a room full of people turn away from me. The elevator doors on the far side opened, and through the glass I saw Olivia step out, smiling, flawless, completely unaware of the file that would change everything. The gala was a glittering spectacle, chandeliers reflecting gold, cameras trained on the stage. The who's who of the industry gathered in their finest attire. Olivia moved through the room like she owned it, laughing, posing for photos, collecting praise for work that wasn't hers. Every step, every smile, every effortless joke, she believed the world still belonged to her. I stayed in the shadows, dossier in hand, heart hammering. Julia had taken her place in the AV booth, fingers poised over the controls. Mark stood near the stage exits, ready to guide anyone who tried to interfere. The room held its breath, unaware that the performance was about to end. When Olivia took the stage to accept the Innovator of the Year award, the screen behind her flickered. Her polished presentation filled the left half as expected. On the right, metadata, drafts, emails, and time-stamped files began to scroll. Each slide was a proof of authorship, each email a nail in her fabricated narrative. A hush fell. Cameras swung. Phones rose. I stepped forward, voice steady, cutting through the murmurs. What you're seeing is the truth. Every chart, every concept, every strategy in this campaign was mine, created, drafted, and executed before Olivia ever touched it. Audio clips played next, Olivia boasting in private about reworking someone else's work and deliberately misleading executives. Witness statements scrolled across the screen. Every quiet whisper, every manipulation, every stolen idea was now undeniable. The room went still. Executives' faces hardened. Clients murmured, their previous admiration replaced by disbelief. The award glittered in Olivia's hand, meaningless now. She opened her mouth to charm her way out, but it was too late. The compliance officer I had tipped stepped forward, stating calmly, "This behavior violates company ethics and constitutes misrepresentation. Effective immediately, Ms. Price is suspended pending a full investigation." Cameras captured the shock as security gently escorted her off the stage. Clients whispered about withdrawing contracts. Investors questioned board decisions. Social media feeds, already prepped by the reporter, erupted with screenshots and commentary. Fraud allegations rock industry gala, Golden Girl exposed for stolen work. They laughed at Rachel, now they cry at her success. Olivia's empire crumbled in real time. Her poised facade faltered. The laughter that once ruled rooms became the quiet panic of a woman realizing she had miscalculated. Flashbulbs caught every moment of her collapse, every stumble, every strained smile. And me? I stood center stage, dossier clutched to my chest, the weight of months of strategy, patience, and fire finally released. Applause followed, not hollow, not polite, but genuine recognition of truth being restored. People who had doubted me, ignored me, or laughed at my pain now saw me clearly, capable, unstoppable, undeniable. She had tried to erase me. She had tried to humiliate me. She had tried to convince the world I didn't belong. And in that moment, as I looked out over the stunned crowd, I realized the truth. I hadn't just survived her betrayal, I had risen above it. Olivia's crown had fallen, and for the first time, the girl they mocked was standing taller than anyone in the room. The morning after the gala, the city woke to headlines that made Olivia's world crumble. Golden Girl exposed for fraud, industry star suspended for stolen work. They laughed at Rachel, now she leads the way. Social media feeds were alive with screenshots, proof, and commentary. Her reputation, once untouchable, was reduced to whispers and speculation. Her suspension turned into a full investigation. Contracts she had signed were frozen. Clients requested audits. Investors reconsidered partnerships. The award she had prepared to accept was revoked before it even left the podium. The empire she had built on stolen work and manipulation was collapsing piece by piece. And me? For the first time in years, I walked into the office without hesitation. Colleagues stopped by to congratulate me, to apologize, even to ask questions about how I had uncovered the truth. Where once they had doubted me, they now respected me, not just for my work, but for my resilience. The CEO summoned me to his office. His tone was measured, tinged with regret. "Rachel, we failed to see your value for too long. But we won't make that mistake again. I want you leading the next campaign, your campaign." I nodded, a quiet smile forming. I didn't need to boast. I didn't need recognition. I had already claimed something far more powerful, control of my story, and the satisfaction that justice, real justice, had been served. Weeks passed, and Olivia became a cautionary tale. Friends, colleagues, and even casual acquaintances whispered about her downfall. Her social media accounts went silent. Her lavish lifestyle contracted to legal consultations and carefully worded statements. She had spent years trying to humiliate me, and now she existed only in the shadow of my rise. One evening, walking past the cafe where she once mocked me, I paused and looked at my reflection in the window. The girl who had been laughed at, mocked, and dismissed was gone. In her place stood a woman who had endured, strategized, and triumphed. The echoes of laughter that had once wounded me were replaced by the quiet power of truth. Poetic justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's quiet. It's the knowledge that the person who tried to destroy you now watches your light shine, powerless to dim it. And to you, watching this story unfold, have you ever been betrayed? Felt the sting of someone trying to erase you? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. If watching someone rise from pain to triumph gave you chills, hit subscribe. More stories of betrayal, resilience, and justice are coming, stories where the underdog isn't just heard, but victorious. Remember this, they may laugh at your pain, but one day, they will cry at your success.